The story Cyril shares from the Northwoods of Minnesota begins like so many hunting traditions do: quiet mornings, familiar ridgelines, and the sense of stepping into a landscape unchanged for generations. But what unfolded for his family in Itasca County was something far outside the boundaries of the ordinary. His account, passed down from father to sons and connected by eerie events across decades, paints a picture of a region where something unknown may have been watching from the treeline all along. It begins on the Minnesota deer opener, a time marked by crisp air, fresh snow, and the anticipation of the season ahead. Cyril's father had taken up his position near a ravine, an area known to funnel deer during the early hours. He expected to see a buck or perhaps a doe slipping through the brush. Instead, what stepped into view, just 50 yards away, defied every expectation of what the Minnesota woods should hold. According to Cyril's father, the creature was wolf-like but impossibly large, and more unsettlingly, it stood on two legs. Broad-shouldered, thick-muscled, and towering above the brush, it scanned the ravine as though searching for something. For a suspended moment, hunter and creature observed the same quiet woods, but from entirely different vantage points. Before it disappeared into the trees, Cyril's father snapped a photograph, imperfect under the conditions, but clear enough to make one thing undeniable: something big was there, something that didn't fit. The incident shook him. Hardened hunters are used to encountering black bears, wolves, and even the occasional moose. But this was different. The posture, the movement, the sheer size, nothing about it matched the animals native to northern Minnesota. He knew what he saw was real. What he didn't know was how to make sense of it. When Cyril and his brothers returned on the third weekend of hunting, they expected to explore the area and perhaps find tracks or physical evidence supporting their father's sighting. Instead, they encountered something much more visceral. As they set up camp under a light snowfall, the familiar sounds of the forest were interrupted by a scream so piercing and unnatural that it froze all of them in place. Cyril describes it as a sound caught somewhere between a woman and a monkey, high-pitched, distressed, and filled with an uncanny intelligence. It wasn't the scream of a fox, which can resemble a woman's cry, nor the call of a bobcat. This was longer, deeper, and layered with a tone none of them had heard before, despite spending their lives in the woods. Then, from another ridge, came an answer. This second scream echoed through the timber, lower and rougher, reminiscent of a howler monkey, something that absolutely does not belong in the forests of Minnesota. The calls bounced across the ridgelines, coming from the very direction where Cyril's father had taken the photograph. For Cyril and his brothers, the realization hit simultaneously: whatever his father saw wasn't alone. The woods seemed to fall silent afterward, as though the forest itself listened. The snowfall muffled everything except the pounding of their own hearts. Cyril recalls how each brother instinctively reached for their rifle, not out of aggression, but out of the primal need to feel protected. Hunters are taught to respect wildlife, but this was different. This was the feeling of stepping into a place where humans might not be the apex observers anymore. Over the following days, they heard additional knocks, distant howls, and underbrush movement that didn't match deer or typical predators. While they never saw a creature directly, the constant sense of being watched never lifted. What made all of this more disturbing was that the activity centered around the ravine and ridges tied to their father's experience. Something was in those woods, and it didn't want to remain unseen. Cyril's story doesn't exist in isolation. As the interview moves deeper, he reveals that his grandfather, decades earlier and miles away near Grand Rapids, experienced strange encounters of his own. Heavy footsteps circling campsites, guttural vocalizations at night, and sightings of large silhouettes standing between the trees were part of his hunting memories. At the time, he chalked them up to imagination or misidentified wildlife, but as Cyril pieced the stories together, patterns emerged. 3 generations of the same family, all in northern Minnesota, all encountering phenomena that echo long-standing folklore: upright canids, Sasquatch-like beings, or something in between. Minnesota has always held stories whispered around campfires, tales of tall shapes crossing remote roads, unidentifiable screams drifting over frozen lakes, or massive tracks left in fresh snow. Many dismiss them as tall tales. But Cyril's family didn't go searching for legends. The legends found them. This convergence of sightings, sounds, and experiences forces a difficult question: what exactly is roaming the northern forests? The creature described by Cyril's father resembles an upright canid, a type of being increasingly reported across the Midwest. Some refer to them as dogmen, though the term often draws skepticism. Yet the details remain consistent across sightings: wolf-like heads atop muscular, humanoid bodies capable of moving on 2 legs with frightening grace. On the other hand, the vocalizations Cyril and his brothers heard more closely match traditional Sasquatch reports. Deep, resonant howls and high-pitched screams have long been associated with Bigfoot encounters. The apparent communication between two unseen beings further supports the idea of intelligent creatures with complex vocal ranges. Could both types of beings inhabit the same regions? Or is what Cyril's family encountered a single species capable of varied vocalization and posture? The Minnesota Northwoods are vast, heavily forested, and sparsely populated, an ideal environment for large, elusive animals to remain undetected. People assume we have cataloged every creature in North America, yet the reality is that massive swaths of wilderness remain largely unexplored, especially at night or in difficult terrain. Hunters see more than most, and when lifelong outdoorsmen say something is out of place, their experiences deserve more than dismissal. Beyond the shock and fear, Cyril's story holds a deeper significance. His family's encounters stretch across time, revealing that these beings, whatever they are, may have been present for generations. It raises the possibility that northern Minnesota is home to a long-standing population of mysterious creatures moving silently through the forests, interacting only when humans accidentally cross their path. The most compelling aspect of the account may not be the photo, the screams, or even the sighting itself. It is the feeling shared by everyone who has encountered something unexplainable in the wild, the realization that the world remains far more mysterious than we often allow ourselves to believe. Cyril's experience reminds us that the unknown isn't confined to remote jungles or distant mountains, it could be standing just 50 yards away in a Minnesota ravine, watching from the shadows as the snow begins to fall. And for those willing to listen, the Northwoods still have secrets to share.